One of the most important investments we can make as enrollment managers is in our people, because this is very much a personal, one-by-one decision as you meet with families and help them come to the conclusion that Susquehanna either is or is not their very best college fit. And I've spent a lot of time in my year and a half here trying to work with staff and coach them about what are the most effective ways to have those conversations. But it becomes clear that you need more help perhaps than you can provide on your own. So the best step is to find a great expert who can come in and work with your staff in a highly interactive way, both appealing to the science behind why it is we would behave the way that we would, but then also teaching proven techniques for us to have successful and meaningful conversations with families, and then to practice those. So I came to the conclusion that although I'd love to think I could do it myself, I thought that it would be better to bring in an expert that I trusted to work with my team and help them get even better.
I was expecting a lot of information and great information, which I think I got, but what I think was even exceeded expectations, or was better, was the role playing and the emphasis placed on role playing and making us a little uncomfortable with our normal habits and what we usually do, to recognize that feel uncomfortable now so that when you're doing this for real, it's more second nature to you.
The training helped me today think differently about the way I approach my conversations with students. Many times my conversations are driven to explaining the financial aid process and just going through that daunting task with a family, but I think it allowed me to think differently and kind of pause and step back and focus more on emotional drivers that factor into students making decisions when looking at colleges, and kind of step back and refocus my questions and answer, going through that conversation with the student so I can really sell more of Susquehanna and not so much focus on that financial aid process. Even though that's important, I think there's other things and value that I can provide to the student and family during my conversation.
Well, there are two things that really stand out for me about the presentation. The first is when you were able to show the brain science yesterday. Because I think we have people who operate on a more emotional feeling sort of basis, and then we have staff members who are much more analytic in their approach, and they're willing to try new things. They'd like to try new things, but they're not willing to try them unless there's some sort of data-driven reason or perspective for them to think, oh, this might actually work, this new thing that I'm asking you to do. So I think when you talked about just not only the results of the Longmire co-sponsored surveys, where there was really great data about the world at large and then Susquehanna, but then I think really drilling down into how it is that the brain is receiving information. So that was part one. If there are any doubters in the room, there weren't any doubters after that. But I think the part that's been most valuable for me, and I think for all the staff today, is the whole idea about filling the buckets. How it is that you ask questions of people to get information that then will allow you to share meaningful information with them, as opposed to the traditional blah, blah, blah that college admission officers do. And even if you think you're really good at it, there's still some of that blah, blah, blah. And you really gave us the techniques that we could use going forward, where the person hearing us won't think it's blah, 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 because we're talking exactly about the things that they've identified as being crucial to them.
This type of development is something I really wish I had as an admission counselor. In fact, I'm thinking about calling my old mentor, who was the vice president, now at a different university, but he was my vice president. And one time I went to him, I asked, have you ever thought about having some sales training? Because I had spent some time in financial advising before I had decided to stick with admissions. And we had some sales training. I found it so valuable and such a great growth opportunity that I took a lot of those skills I learned into admission. And I think it's an interesting way, because I think in higher ed we just get so involved and enveloped in the job we're doing that we don't take time to pause and think about why we're doing it that way and how we're doing it and is it effective. And this really showed me that we can, with this type of training, this type of information, do things differently than other schools through our process, much more easily than we can add a new program, add a new major that we might say that's instantly how we can get more students. This is something that you could immediately do, low cost, very little cost, these types of techniques, and get great results.
Your information was very helpful. Getting the survey results about Susquehanna and our excitement factors was important, because it allowed me to realize that we are doing a really good job. We don't always get that feedback, but to see students are excited about Susquehanna makes you feel good and makes you think differently and kind of retool the ways you're explaining your information so it's pertinent to that student.
We included admission, financial aid, the university communications staff. We had people from residence life, from facilities, from public safety, event management, and planning on campus. So we tried to open this up because we think when the university is going to make this investment, you don't want to hoard all the information. So people I invited all of our senior staff. I asked them to invite any of their staff that they thought are on the front line all the time working with families where they would benefit from this kind of training. And I would say across the board, there was tremendous added value for every person in the room, and it doesn't matter what their role is in our program. In choosing Longmire and Company and inviting you and Rick to come to the campus, I was choosing two people that I knew could really help us advance our skills in a way where there would be an actionable result at the end of the 2-day period together. What it really comes down to is the team that people operate on and the work environment that they have. And I think one of the highest compliments I've ever been paid as enrollment manager is one of my staff who said, everybody says people are our most important resource, but you're the first person who it was very clear that we are. And this kind of training for me is yet another expression of I care about you, I care about your development, and developing you is going to help Susquehanna, but I care about you. So I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and I think I would encourage all those who can to consider using your services at Longmire and Company.